All right, well, we'll call the meeting to order. My first one is the chair.
Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
If you wince when you watch the video later, it's because I banged my knee as you said that, not because you're the chair.
It's okay, it's okay, whatever works. So we absolutely have a quorum. I've talked to Jen, there was one piece on the minutes that we agreed to amend because we did not include the votes, you know, what the actual votes were on the things from the capital planning committee, just what the approvals were, and so she's going to amend it, put those votes in, and then that will be the amended minutes. So I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as admitted, unless somebody else has a correction.
Oh, yeah.
No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Got it done. Okay. All right, we've got minutes done. We'll go over to Tracy and what have we got?
I sent you the reports, I think
Yes.
you got those, so,
Yeah, and I sent those out to the members.
okay, I don't know if anyone had any questions in particular about any items they saw of concern, but right now, we're just, revenues, you look at this and it can be somewhat deceiving because you can see we're not tracking at 50%, nothing to be concerned about. We have certain things that happen at different times of the year, for example, motor vehicle, our big commitment doesn't come from the Registry of Motor Vehicles until February, so we're not gonna see,
And then it'll come in at,
exactly, so by the end of March, those numbers will jump right up. The state's notorious for not giving us our pilot money until the end of the year, so you may see, basically nothing here is really of concern. The only thing that's a little bit lower than I would expect is some of the fees, but we'll see dog license fees and parking fees and those types of things ramp up as the spring gets here, so.
on the, let's talk a little bit about pilot because maybe some of our members are not familiar with where we get those funds. Those are payments in lieu of taxes. We get some from the wildlife refuge. That's a regular thing. We push to get some from Dummer. That's an irregular thing. They have been, funding a cruiser?
They funded, we don't assess them a pilot,
Right.
because as you know, they're exempt, but they have been very generous in each year pretty much every year coming to the community and saying, what are you in need of, what can we help with? They've bought, they've purchased dump trucks, they've purchased police cruisers, the emergency truck, I think they were involved in the purchase of that. More recently, they've been very involved in upgrading computer equipment for police and fire services. And they have also made a commitment to us that as we move forward with our building project, that each year they will give us a contribution towards the debt service payments on that project.
Once we have debt service payments.
Correct. We haven't done any, we'll be doing some short-term borrowing soon, but when the project's complete and we have issued the debt, they'll make an annual contribution, so.
Who talks about it?
I'm sorry,
Who do you talk to?
Peter Quimby
Quimby.
and Christopher Weisher. Yep.
Okay.
He is, yeah, my conversations are directly with them and then they go back to the board,
Yeah.
yes. And depending on how their, financial statement ends up at the end of the year, it kind of dictates
Yeah, sure.
what they're willing to contribute.
So do you anticipate that number being pretty much what it was in fiscal 18?
Yes, yeah, that's an assessment that, much like there's a calculation for your annual property taxes, the state calculates what percentage of land they have in your town, and they pay you a fee accordingly. So it's uniform across the Commonwealth.
Subject to appropriation.
Subject to appropriation, yes, indeed. We've had years that we've received 2 payments in 1 year and no
Yeah.
payment the previous year, but
Mhm.
we've consistently received it eventually.
Okay. Is there anything new or that we should know on the building project?
Not that I'm aware of. The last information that I received was that they were doing test borings, and I have not seen the results of those borings yet.
They still have that fairly aggressive timeline that I heard.
As far as I know,
Wow.
Looked pretty aggressive, I'm trying to think of.
it was, yeah.
Up to date in August,
Yes.
Yeah, it was ambitious, yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
okay, and then September 20 occupying,
Yeah.
something
But-
like that.
If anyone can get it done, Bob can.
I know, I'm not.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
But do
Well, but it's.
do we have a plan yet?
I'm not on the committee anymore,
Okay,
so I'm
okay.
not sure. I can ask for an update,
All right. I
grab
can
their
do that.
minutes.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Bob can, except this is state.
Yeah.
State funding.
Well-
State processing.
That's true.
And all the permit, that's a little different.
That's true.
But you're right.
He might make it happen anyway.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Okay. Good. I didn't find, we didn't get any transfers, correct?
Nope, just
Okay.
the one you took action on the last time.
Budget calendar hasn't changed from what it was.
Nope.
Well, that's a point I need to bring up. On March 5th, I will not be here, that would be yours. Or we can move to the 7th when I will be here,
What day of the week is the 7th?
Thursday.
I'm not able to do Thursdays.
Is it the first Thursday?
Is the first
I
Thursday.
will not be here. I have a carnival on the first Thursday. That's,
Oh, come on, you guys.
good.
Hey,
It's when he's.
hey, wait a minute. It's only us.
I know, but I would have to, do this.
Yeah, might as well get used to it.
Are we gonna have anything of
That's-
substance on budget? by
Well,
then?
the budget,
I'll probably be able to provide you, my goal is to have the preliminary budget information. It won't be adopted by the selectmen, but it'll be
close.
pretty detailed at that point in time. I've got some draft information just for you to take a look at. I mean, there's nothing, pass those around, if you don't mind, Katie. There's nothing extraordinary. And there are still a lot of estimates. I haven't heard anything formally from Triton. I have the documents that they provided the other night, so I'm working with those numbers. Haven't heard any conversation from Whittier or Essex Tech yet. So I'll have to get those numbers in, and I'm still waiting for information from the Veterans Assessment. But other than that, what you see, I've still got to have some conversations with public safety officials, because there were some increases there that we probably wouldn't be able to support. So you'll see it fine-tuned, but that's what you have there is, pretty much what we'll be looking at. The special article requests have not, we haven't set a deadline for those yet. We usually wait until mid-February, the end of February, in case anything comes up. Other than what you saw presented to the capital planning committee,
Yep.
I don't foresee any other large expenditures. We have a computer purchase, a few $1,000s. Other
Not
than
going to
that,
come up with that capital plan.
no. I mean, the goal is, now that we've been working with a similar budget format for about the last 6 or 7 years, the department managers have really done a nice job in projecting what their expenses are going to be. And, the hope is someday we wouldn't need to have a fall town meeting. We could get it all done in the spring. And it's getting tighter and tighter. I mean, they're doing a nice job in their review and analysis. So by the time it gets to you, the numbers are pretty solid.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, for committee reports, I'll do CPC. We had a CPC meeting And what we are doing is updating the capital plan, going forward as far out as we can to set up long-term budgets for the town, what some of the capital needs are going to look like. It's gonna take us a while to get that done, but Tracy's given us a lot of information. All of us are going out and going into different departments to get their information. Everyone has been really quite forthcoming and quite helpful in putting that together, but it's still gonna take a bit of work to get that done, so.
It's been about 5 years since we've done a real
Yes.
comprehensive.
Yes, and we need to do that. We need to do that because, you know, we're gonna have things that we have never had before that weren't in the last plan, that will be in the next plan.
Format is there, which is good, right?
Yes.
You can
Yes.
use the same format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Anything, any other DCC?
Oh, I attended the DCC meeting, last Thursday. Yeah, you were there. It was a very good meeting, actually. It was really, I thought, a lot of good discussion. One of the things that I wasn't aware of, is that the chairs from the Board of Selectmen and the superintendent meet. And I'm not sure what their task is.
Communication.
Just basic communication, in addition to the district communications committee, which I think is a good thing, just to kind of keep things rolling. We did discuss briefly the landlord-tenant agreement, which our piece is all done.
Mhm.
Basically, it's all settled. And Rowley is all settled. It's just that Triton is working with Salisbury, because theirs is a little more complicated. Because, as you know, Triton owns the building,
Yes.
but that's paid off in a year.
Oh, one more year to go.
Is this the final year? It might be.
I believe it is.
This is probably their last year. So that transition has to take place, and there has to be agreement around now who pays for what. You know, and in general, it's anything outside is because we end up leasing, right? To them for $1 a year or something.
I don't think
Whatever.
there's
It's
any
not-
monetary
no,
value, but.
But it's still,
Mhm.
that piece is still being worked on, and actually, I think it's gonna come out all right finally.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just a matter of working that out. with
Yeah, it's just a
Salisbury.
little more complicated because of with Newbury and Raleigh, we own our own
Right.
elementary facility, and the district owns Salisbury Elementary,
Right.
so we're trying to make sure there's parity in all the communities, and we're all, you know, sharing the expenses we should be, and
Yeah.
not sharing the ones we shouldn't be. So,
And it was, I mean, the reason for the district owning it was that the district had a better bond rating and could get a better rate,
Mhm.
which made sense.
Yeah, thanks. Good
So,
economic sense.
The other, let's see, we did talk about the alternative assessment working group, which is taking a look at how the district assesses the towns for their portion of the budget. That group, however, Newbury is not represented on that group, I guess by choice of the selectmen. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Which,
Yep.
which, in my opinion, is a mistake.
Mhm.
I think we should be represented, we should have a voice, and especially as things are starting to change with respect to, as you know, Newbury's minimum contribution was such that it really worked in our favor over the last several years.
Yes.
And we did, our Triton assessment was, in fact, in 1 year was zero.
went down, yeah.
Went down. But now, that's pretty much leveled off, so that enrollment, and I did the numbers, and Brian had mentioned this too, the superintendent mentioned it. If you did it by enrollment, or you did it by the two-step method, the difference was like $100. I mean, it was almost minuscule, you know? So we need to take a look at that. The other thing that's happening is currently it's based on just the previous year's enrollment. At one time, it was based on a 3-year average enrollment,
A rolling average.
a rolling average, yes. And what happens this year, and will continue to happen probably, is Salisbury's enrollment, although it hasn't gone up much, Newbury and Raleigh have gone down. So it creates this significant increase for the
Yeah,
town of
it should.
Salisbury,
Yeah.
which impacts, quite frankly, the amount of money that the district is able to get, because it's very much governed, if you will, by, in this case, Salisbury, who cannot, and they were very clear about it at the meeting, afford what their assessment would be this year. So if their assessment goes down, our assessment goes down, Raleigh's assessment goes down, and you're looking at reductions in staff, again, you're looking at, so
Cutting programs low.
that's why I think it's important to take a real hard look at going toward that another look at the rolling
Rolling 3-year.
3-year average, because it could impact anyone. What the rolling average, either 3 or 5, I mean, you can do.
It smooths it a
any
lot
number.
better and fun.
And so the impact of a sudden change in enrollment in 1 year doesn't hit you financially. So the towns can
Okay.
better prepare. Anyway,
So-
that's,
I think then
Where that
a
is.
letter from this committee to the selectmen recommending that we put a representative from Newbury on the assessment committee.
alternative assessment working group.
Alternatives.
The administrators of the district came to the Board of Selectmen and made a presentation for it and asked the selectmen voted not to support making a change. That's why, and the administrators
But that was
decided they were
that
gonna
year.
continue. I don't know that anything's changed.
Board of Selectmen can change.
Yeah, true.
People
True.
can change. I mean, if people in this community begin to see a significant impact on the quality of education, I mean, if I was
I
a parent,
Yep, I'm just telling
and
you
I
transpired.
and I understood what was,
Yep.
as a parent, understand what I understand, I would be screaming right now. Because it's another year when things are,
Mhm.
you know,
Yes, I do.
I'm
so
not sure that a lot of people understand.
you're probably right, I think. And we've been very fortunate over the last, 5, 6 years, I don't know how long.
The last 3 years, we've been fortunate, but the 5 before that, we were on Salisbury's end.
Not quite, not
No?
quite. No, that's not, everybody likes to say that, but that wasn't, it was longer ago than that, number one. And it wasn't like, I mean, Salisbury's always, when are they looking at, a half close to a million?
Oh, no, we weren't in the same dollar value, but we were the community that could least afford the
Yes.
increases.
Yeah.
But we did
Salisbury,
at the
yes.
expense of.
Yes.
So this is our contribution to,
To Triton, the whole.
got it, and
To
then,
try,
Yeah.
yeah.
And-
It's-
and then they do this calculation, I heard you say 2-step or based on enrollment, and
And the other piece is based on the ability, quite frankly, the ability of a community to
The
pay.
community QV,
And
you know,
so they do it, it's based on your
incomes,
income
property values.
and property values and the number of kids. And they come up, it's a formula.
okay.
And we were, the last few years, we were credited, I'm gonna use the word credited. It's a little bit complicated and I
Sure.
used to know how to do it.
You have to
in my head.
reach a foundation,
Yeah,
and once you
foundation.
reach that foundation, then you start to get relief. So
Yeah.
Newbury had a number of years where we had a very significant increase in ours, but once we got beyond that, now it's stabilized, for lack of a better
I think
word.
everybody's pretty stable. at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah, yeah.
And the
So-
concern, I guess, is,
Well, my concern is is the sudden impact on the program of one, I mean, the communities, two communities can vote the budget. So Rowley and Newbury could vote to approve the Triton budget.
Okay.
It's all we then is stuck. But I think.
To pay something that they're saying they can't pay.
Right.
Right.
And
Okay.
so I think it's good that, number one, that the three town administrators are working with the superintendent to kind of, and the towns have more or less trying to work together.
I think so.
I
Yeah,
think it was
I
an
think so,
honest
definitely.
effort to try to,
Yep.
so.
But if they can't pay, and I'm sure you're working to figure out, okay, it's just a reallocation of those funds to
They pay.
Newbury and Rowley.
Well, what would happen is that two-step formula that Jean mentioned, you have the per pupil portion of it as
Yeah.
well as the
Foundation.
minimum contribution portion of it. And so the state says, okay, Newbury, you will pay this amount, and then we redistribute any additional amounts based on the number of students we have. So we know how much we have to pay. But if Newbury says, wow, we don't have any new growth this year, we can't support that, then Salisbury and Raleigh passes it. What happens is we have to support it, we have to pay it, and I think it was 2011, you had laid off like 25% of your police force and your
Yeah, we
DPW and your
we-
library,
we
because you
made
have
it
to pay it.
Because we had to really cut deep in the budget. And this came after 2009, we tried.
We were looking for an override of about $900,000
Right,
for.
which
I
didn't
gotcha, it
pass.
didn't pass.
Yeah, it didn't pass. We were looking for it for schools, for police, for
Well,
others.
a lot of things.
Yeah.
What happened, just for the history, is that in 2009, we did a study, I did a study.
Yeah.
And went back to when 2.5 was first introduced. And we looked at what the tax increase was versus the rate of inflation for the Northeast, basically for this area. And we came up that in real dollars, in 1980 dollars, we were about $1 million behind per year in the budget. Now, it gets complicated because state aid fell off, some other things fell off.
That's-
But in the collection of taxes, we were off just about $1 million. And that was,
This $1 million, is it a function of just the tax rate? Or is it a function of people and communities?
no, it's
having
tax rate.
Just pure
Just
tax rate?
within the tax rate. Because if you're capped at 2.5, actually some years they didn't even go up to 2.5%. And inflation is 3.25%, you're automatically behind. And so just running those numbers up, we came up with just about 950,000.
And the state has not been, the state has never funded transportation, regional transportation, the way they promised back. I think the highest it's been is at 72%.
Yeah, that was
And
1960.
it's been as low as 60-something. You know, in a district like Triton, that's a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
And their chapter 70, I mean, I think that basically with the governor's budget, there's an increase of $46,000 in chapter 70 for Triton. It's pitiful, but it's the way they, so there's a lot of things going on. I mean, you have, if you look at a school budget, what you're gonna see over the last 10 or 15 years is the budget goes up and there's increases in the budget. The state funding is pretty level. It hasn't gone up much. But then if you look at the budget, and this is just the nature of education today, you know, you're gone from 5% of your budget addressing special needs to 25%. But the budget hasn't increased. So you're, you know, I'm sure Paul has some experience with looking at,
Very much,
you
yes.
know.
Massively
And I'm,
understaffed.
you know, I'm just
Mhm.
sort of back of the envelope talking, but it's,
Yeah, it's
and
basically,
now they're
we've been
looking at
cutting
significant
education.
mental health issues in
It's
schools.
cost them Peter to pay Paul.
Yes.
And the state's contribution has been shifting to the communities.
Yeah.
So with a community like Newbury that relies so heavily on its tax base, property tax base, it's you guys that are gonna be paying it, so.
And most people in town, the overrides continue to fail because they don't wanna pay for it.
Because they don't wanna, right.
Well, they don't wanna pay for it, and you can't blame them for that. But it has a long-term effect, and that's one of the education parts that is hard to get through people,
Mm.
is, no, this is our town and we're going backward. And to get people to come here, you know, our draw has been the public schools. We've had great public schools in Newbury, and if we don't protect them, then property values go down. We had, in the hearings, we had actually real estate people come up and say, folks, if I can't get good school system, I'll pull my family and go somewhere where I can.
Interesting. I heard I was listening to, I don't know if it was NPR or somewhere, about Massachusetts. And the smaller towns in Massachusetts are experiencing aging, significant aging.
We're sitting in here.
And that's gonna have a devastating impact on the communities, because the communities die, literally.
The master plan is addressing.
Oh, I'm sure they're looking
We're-
at it, because it's pretty significant.
We've been looking at, you know, what do we do?
A community with all those people is not a very vital community, you know?
It's very quiet though.
It's very quick. Wow. Might have to increase the cemeteries. But I'm sorry, I'm just kind of taking too much time here, but I think,
Well,
we start
but
with
it,
our
I mean, this is some of the stuff that we have to talk
you know,
about.
I don't know whether, you know,
I mean, if you look at your boards, they're very representative of your communities as well.
Yeah.
We don't I have a friend who's on the finance committee for Linfield, and obviously Linfield's a much different
Right.
town, but he said that their boards are fairly young professionals, you know, 30s, 40s,
Right.
in that day.
With kids in the school system.
Right.
A lot of kids in the school
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
But also Linfield has other draws for families as well that we don't have
Oh,
in
yeah,
terms of the
that's
commercial base, and that's,
that's the market, the marketplace is there.
yeah.
Yeah, resources, right? Like, I think, I scream this all the time, but like these sidewalks, I just, something so basic creates community. And
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone in town yells at me like, stop talking about sidewalks. I don't want sidewalks in my town. You're not a bike fielder. I'm like, yeah.
Well,
But-
it's part of a
That is
lot of
true,
things
though.
that
It's-
would make that.
That's what you're fighting against.
Sewage,
Yeah.
water, you know, there are
Yeah.
other things too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that was all. Well, I don't know whether the committee wants to do anything or not, but I think we should have representation, even though they're not interested in the change.
Are you talking about FinCom representation or
Well,
selectmen representation?
I guess it's, I don't even know, I guess it's their appointment, I'm not sure.
I think it's a committee of community selectmen from each community. I thought it was, but,
On the assessment?
mm,
Oh.
but I can follow up with
Oh, you
Brian
think
for it.
it's one of these selectmen?
I believe so.
But we can,
When you,
she
There-
is, she's
Well, she's changed,
very supportive of it.
is she?
Mm. Yeah, she said, yeah, at the meeting, she didn't know with the other selectmen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the
She was very-
board voted
very-
not to support a change to the
Yeah.
formula.
Yeah.
So maybe all for naught regardless if they're not gonna support whatever comes out of that committee, because it has to be all three towns to change formula.
Correct.
You have to have town meeting vote.
Yeah.
But, if we're not there. it's-
Mhm.
so,
Well, Tracy, if you would check and see if it's one of the selectmen
Mhm.
and let me know.
Yeah.
And then we can write up a recommendation.
They can appoint, I mean, we can recommend that they
Yeah.
move forward with at least putting somebody on the committee so we have a voice. I said it the other night at the meeting.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Because they were, I think, 2 or 3.
Most of them were
selectmen
there.
Yeah.
I just said, I think it would behoove us to have a voice on the committee. realize we didn't even have anybody there. But I'm done. Oh, our preliminary, by the way, I should, at the moment, because these are the numbers, where actually our operating currently, and they have to have this budget into us by
March 1st.
March 1st, so if everything stood the way it stands now, they're requesting from Newbury 315,000, but that will most likely change. It will most likely become. Newbury's assessment would be 315, Raleigh would be about 420, Salisbury would be 980,000. So,
That's
How much was Salisbury?
982,000.
Is Raleigh gonna make 420? What was the number that was in?
Increase, that's increase.
Increase for the year.
What was the number that was in their letter? I thought it was in the twos.
Oh, well, that's what
That's what-
Requesting.
that's their position.
I got you.
Right.
It's 290 or something.
So that's a concern too then.
Oh, yes, oh, yeah, they're all,
Yeah.
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 Oh, yes, because, and there may be some additional funding coming, once they go through all their,
Maybe.
but they may move it on regional transportation.
That would be nice.
But even if there's some movement, it's not significant. They throw you a bone. The legislators in Massachusetts think they're doing wonders for schools, and they're doing diddly squat. That study that just came out, the governor's budget proposed $1 billion over 5 years. They need $1 billion a year for schools. Massachusetts. That's really what they need. And that was what the study showed. And that was by I think the auditor's office.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She's quite a character.
So, anyway, these are just preliminary numbers and not, the driver for the most part, depending on, it's a very tough position to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob came to a presentation at Triton.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
And I think the superintendent does, I think he has an excellent staff in terms of,
Outstanding.
they're very straightforward with everything, there's nothing, And the other thing that's happening, as an aside, they've been they worked on a number of years to build back their choice in students, and that's taken a little bit of a hit this year. And that's lost revenue.
Was that Salisbury?
It's not by town.
Or just generally?
Yeah. They're not seeing what so that's, every kid that's out is $5,000, I think. And then you have the charter.
From the state.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so for every choice you lose, you're losing.
Yeah. And the reverse is true, you gain, if you bring in a choice. So, anyway. Now I'm done.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for
You're welcome.
indulging me.
It's all right.
Yeah, no, but it helps us to
All good
understand.
Yeah, well, that's what part of this
How are we
is.
supposed to know what the right decision is if we don't understand what's
Yeah.
going on in the school?
Yeah, I think for me, this is super beneficial because I don't understand all of these, kind of the finer points of this stuff, so
Yeah.
the more you guys can help educate me, obviously, the more I can.
The longer we're here,
Help.
the more we learn. And it is a learning process for
And just when you think you get it, they change the formulas.
Yeah, so it's actually, municipal finance is so, in many ways, is very different from,
Oh, it's completely
it's
different from
just
financial
totally-
accounting, yeah.
Yeah, it's just totally different. It's not about making money, it's about spending money and finding, and providing services. That's really, because there's no, you can't build more, whatever you're building, or selling more products,
It's never about the money, Gene, it's always about the money.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. That's my job. I know.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
Okay, any other business? We have no citizens here to have any concerns. And I have not received any communications from anyone, which is good. Next meeting, we're gonna stay on Tuesday the 5th, unless there's a real crime.
not sure.
And
Will we have stuff?
You'll do fine. There's,
Be the boss lady will
you'll
go.
be the
You're
boss
up.
lady.
But you'll have to coach me through this, because I've never done any of this.
Is there anyone,
I'll help you get everything set.
is there anyone that we should think about asking to come in? Is there any significant
I
cap
didn't
increases or is it?
Not really.
I didn't see
It's
anything.
not.
Oh, by the way, our capital costs are going down a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, Salisbury's are going down
A lot.
about 500,000, but
But it's, so
Because
is
I
the
raised
revenue
it.
to support it.
the revenue, yeah. And they're also,
It's override
the
money
police is coming
on.
on. The police. the
And they're
bond-
doing a town hall too?
The bonding of their police station comes on, so it's sort of, you know, which we were hoping to be able to do.
We were.
Years ago.
That's right.
If we keep, we'll have zero debt if we keep going
Right.
without, which is not a good thing.
No.
It's not a good thing having zero debt, so. In municipal, it is not.
Really?
No, it is not.
Unlike anywhere else in the world.
That's right.
God, we have to owe money.
Anyway,
Okay, the next meeting is the 5th of February. Anybody else?
No, it's 5th of March.
5th of March. We got the 5th of February.
oh,
What?
March 5th, yes, I'm back. I'm going away.
Okay.
But I
Well,
will be
wait,
back.
you never stay home.
What do you mean?
You shouldn't.
I'm retired.
That's what it's all about, right?
Played golf today.
Did you really?
I
What a
did.
beautiful day.
Yes,
It was
Cape Ann.
very.
Went over to Cape Ann. It was nice. It's good to get out.
He needs to do these things to give me hope. That's where I want to
That's true.
All right, well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Woo,
be. So move.
so move. Another record.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jen.